Hey all, here OS Reviews. You're watching our hands-on review of the Mifo 07. These are TWS wireless earbuds with dual drivers, and they claim to have hi-fi grade audio quality. In fact, they claim to be one of the best sounding wireless headphones that you can find on the market. It follows on the same design and very successful Mifo 05s, which has a stunning construction quality and was also a really good value for the money, considering that it sold for under $70. Now the 07 being kind of the upgraded premium model is not quite as aimed at the mainstream in the sense that it's really going after an audiophile crowd, those that really care about getting the best sound quality possible. And as such, it's a more expensive model as well. It sells for $170. Now, though this model is brand new to the US and European markets, it was first introduced in Japan. Otherwise, it follows the same design philosophy as before, including a metal case, which this time around is about 30% smaller than before, and it also uses USB-C now for charging, which is great to see compared to before, which they stuck with an older micro USB port. It is using a Qualcomm chipset, so it features aptX compared to the standard 05s, which used a cheaper Realtek chip that didn't have aptX, so this should have even lower audio latency. There's dual built-in mics for noise canceling phone calls, although they're not active noise canceling for music listening. There's the aforementioned dual balanced armature drivers, and it also now uses touch-sensitive controls that don't require a button that you need to physically press down on, like we had in the 05s, which were really small and also exerted more pressure whenever you were pressing down. They're also IPX7 rated, just like before, so it's fully waterproof. Now, in terms of battery life, the earbuds claim to last for around 8 hours on a single charge, and the battery case will provide up to 4 additional charges. So that's a combined total of around 32 to 40 hours, depending on the volume that you're listening to. Of course, that's shy of the 05s, which got around 100 hours of audio life. And that's probably due to the smaller battery case design combined with the dual drivers, which are consuming more power. Flips open, and we have on the inside a felt material that also says Mifo on the top, so a very premium presentation. This little box contains the USB Type-C charging cable. Then we've got the user manual along with some spare silicone tips to get a more comfortable fit. The user manual tells you how to quickly set it up and pair it with your smartphone. Taking a closer look at the design of the case, it feels as premium as it did before, extremely hefty considering the entire thing is constructed out of an aluminum chunk. On the side, we have the aforementioned Type-C charging port, an LED light that will glow when being charged up, and the door opens up magnetically, has kind of a fake leather texture inside. The hinge does look a little bit different from before, but still tilts upwards at a slight angle. The company's logo is printed on the dot, which is inverted. It's kind of like a pimple that you can gently tap on, and that's where the controls are situated. Using them, you can play and pause your music, you can skip tracks, and you can also change the volume just by tapping once on either the left or right side to raise or lower it. Now, one feature I will say that's missing compared to the 05s are the audio transparency mode, aka the ambient mode, so you can still have a conversation, for example, without removing them from your ears. So I'm not too sure why they removed that feature. I would have still liked to see it present. It's mostly a software one, but that is one feature that you're missing. These are magnetic, so they can attach into the case with a satisfying click, and they will begin charging once you pop them in. Once you remove them, they instantly begin pairing with your phone. Design of the earphones themselves also have a red accent inside for where the drivers come out of, which is a pretty nice touch. The rear here is constructed out of plastic, and they do feel quite lightweight. It reminds me a little bit of B&O or Bang & Olufsen's design language. Now, the bottom here features the LED light, but it's also where some of the microphones are situated. Again, there are 2 microphones on each side, so there's 4 microphones built on in total that helps with reducing background noise when making a phone call. We'll discuss that later on in this review. Here it is next to the 05s from before, so you can indeed tell that it is going to be much easier to slide into a pocket, whereas previously it was on the larger and bulkier side. Here are some AirPods, and you can see that the overall dimensions of the battery case now are pretty similar, so this is a very compact size. Comparing the shape of the earphones, you can see here is the 07s next to the 05s, next to some Apple AirPods, so you can tell that it's still very compact and small, very lightweight for long-term listening. Moving into audio quality and performance, there's no other way of saying it. The 07s are the best sounding TWS wireless earphones I've ever reviewed, and I've gone through dozens and dozens of pairs through the past few months. There's such a high level of precision within the sound that when you're listening to the same track by wearing these and then switching to something like the 05s or AirPods and then going back to these, you can hear how much detail that you're kind of missing out on. If you're listening to rock music or if you're listening to orchestral music, anything where there's lots of instruments going on that builds upon different layers and layers, on here you can hear every single instrument in detail without missing a beat. Certain instruments like electric guitars sound so satisfying on these. There's a super pleasant amount of bass, but it's just very tightly controlled that it just feels pleasing and satisfying whenever you're listening to those notes. By contrast, the O5s, which I already thought were some of the best sounding wireless headphones that I've reviewed in the budget segment, sound, I hate to say it, but slightly muddled by comparison. Really, after being spoiled by the O7s and trying to go back to a different pair is hard. These are probably the closest I've ever gotten to wireless headphones rivaling true audiophile grade wired headsets and headphones, elevating simple touches in the music such as a drum beat or again a guitar solo or even vocals in an acoustic track, just making everything feel so dynamic and live and realistic, 3D almost. They do sound very clean, so there's almost no hints of any hiss or hum in the background, which might be common in other wireless headsets, but on these, I'm glad to say that it's pretty much only the music. You can play and pause this track, and there's no noise or static that you can discern. Latency is also quite good, so especially if you're watching videos on, say, YouTube, which already optimizes video playback to be in sync with even wireless headphones, on these are going to be perfect. You can watch movies, action films, thrillers, and everything still is connected well between the audio and the video. The left and right sides never got out of sync with one another. Speaking of, call quality is also one of the strongest I've ever tried out of wireless Bluetooth headphones. It does really help if you're in a crowdy or windy space. One of the microphones picks up the background noise, the other one picks up your voice and tries to isolate things. Callers said they could hear me perfectly without any issues. USB Type-C does charge the case within 2 hours, so no real problems there, even though this model does lack Qi wireless charging like some of the competitors do because the entire case is made out of metal, but it's not too big of a deal in my opinion. So that's more or less it as far as our hands-on review of the Mifo O7s. Again, these are hands down the best sounding wireless TWS earbuds that I've ever reviewed. Although it's not the first pair of dual driver wireless headphones that we've seen, but those produced a little bit more background noise and it wasn't quite as precise in terms of the tuning of the drivers. Audio profile, though still not exactly neutral sounding, are just so satisfying because of how tightly controlled bass is, but at the same time it never compromises on delivering sharp and crisp vocals and trebles and just really clean mids. Connection and battery life are all above average. It has a beautiful design and a compact form factor. Ultimately though, the $170 is still on the high side of the spectrum, and I think that folks that want to pick this up will have to really care about the audio quality. If you want the absolute best in sound, then this is definitely a pair that's worth a closer look. Alternatively, there are other models in the same price range of around $200 which do have more features, things like active noise cancellation, a built-in companion app. But for pure audio enthusiasts, I think that the O7 are a really strong model to check out. Kind of changes the stigma, in my opinion, of wireless headphones being inferior to wired ones when it comes to sound, just because of how nice the drivers and tunings on the O7s are. Really exceeded my expectations. If you're interested in that, you can check out more details in the links below. Thanks for watching here at OS Reviews. That's been the Mifo O7s.